Hello. Hi, Michael. There's something with the sound on your side.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
Great.
I can hear you as well.
Wonderful.
Good morning.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to Robert, who is in the far, far east now. Okay, Lev is asking for the link. Just a second, I will send him. Okay.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. Are there more people yet?
Yes, we are 12 now, I think.
Oh, great.
And, oh, Alexei is joining and Lev is coming, so that's great. Hello, Wendy. So nice that you could join. Alice was the first. I hope that she will also switch on the screen. Hi, Violeta.
Hi.
So nice to see you.
Nice to be back.
Alexei. So, Alexei. Hi. So we have guests, I think. Hello, Jody. Lev is coming. Hi, Marilyn. Such a nice background. So how is your summer going?
Background.
Yes, we are siblings with Lev today. So we have the same, we are in the same forest, I think. Yes, that's great. So let me check if we have a translation in our YouTube channel. And let us wait for another 2 minutes. Sue is coming. Great.
Looks like Michael is in Africa. At least the background looks like African. And Robert is somewhere in the open sea. Almost.
You know this rock here, Lev?
I live just nearby, yes.
Okay, yeah.
It looks like Marina and Lev are in the same place. Are you standing next to each other?
Yes, we are in the same forest, I think. Okay.
Interesting that I don't see any cities in our backgrounds.
Absolutely. Our YouTube translation. Great, we are here, so that's nice. So shall we start? First of all, thank you so much to all of you for joining today our panel discussion. You know, I hope that this will be a good opportunity for us to find maybe some new common grounds, to discuss some topics together, and to discuss with you today while we are conducting the Happy Cities Marathon. Now, it's great that we can discuss what is happiness or flourishing and well-being. Hi, Alice. And what could be done, because I've been working on the topic of providing well-being and changing, first of all, the mindset, the approach to these notions. And there are some ideas, some, I would say, hypotheses, which I thought that it would be great if we could discuss together in order to devise some common approach, which could be manifested as one of our visions and our understanding of what could be and should be provided. So let me start. And I really hope that today we will have a vibrant discussion. We wanted to have an hour and a half of discussion today. If you have to skip earlier, or maybe you are not comfortable in participating in some periods of time, that's okay. But of course, my suggestion and intention is to have a vibrant discussion, to discuss our points of view, to learn more about your vision, and to have to create some common picture. Integral pictures is everything which we are trying to provide in Living Cities Earth. So let me share my screen. I have created a small presentation in order to guide us in this process. Can you see the covering slide?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. So here is our agenda, and I hope that this will help us. An hour and a half. First of all, in order to introduce us to our wider community, and we have a live stream in our YouTube channel, it would be great to start from who we are and what the Living Cities Earth is. When I would suggest us to speak about what we mean when we are speaking about abundance, happiness, flourishing, well-being. What does it mean, and how can we think we can influence on it? And what are what are maybe different approaches to this to this phenomena? Then I would suggest to discuss the connection between internal and external aspects of individual and collective development, and to discuss the hypothesis that our collective mindset hugely influences our external conditions of life. So that's the second question I would suggest us to discuss. And at last, maybe I would suggest us either to dream or maybe to discuss the absolutely concrete steps on what could be done in order to provide a new paradigm of thinking, new culture, new aspects, and new understanding of what should be done by each individual and maybe all the humankind as a species in order to provide thriving and flourishing on our planet. So that's my suggestion. I hope that we will have enough time. If not, we can make the series 2. So let's start in order to save our time. So first of all, who we are. We would like to introduce you the Living Cities Earth, the global ecosystem of experts and practitioners. We are led by not 58, but already more than 60 co-founders from 5 continents. And our main intention to provide 10,000 living cities on one living planet, where people can feel fully alive, human well, manifest their potential, and live healthy, happy lives in harmony with each other and with nature. So that's our bold endeavor, our dream, and our absolutely concrete plan of work. And in the events which we were born a year ago, So on the constant basis, Living Cities Earth started operating in August last year. And for the period of 2023, our events attracted leaders from more than 200 cities from 50 countries. And we really hope that very soon we will achieve our targeting point of 10,000 cities. I am an operational director in Living Cities Earth. I define myself as a viewer of abundant reality in different social systems. And I think that I'm an Earthian with the Slavic roots because, first of all, it's really important, my background from Russia, but I also understand that I am, first of all, the dweller of many cities, and I'm a human being who lives on planet Earth, and I live on my planet, and I really hope that we can and should provide thriving and happiness, not only for human beings, but for all species on Earth, and I really hope that we will be able to discuss it today as well. So first question is abundance and happiness. I would suggest maybe a scope of thoughts and of ideas in order for you, in order to maybe form your own opinion. And then I will suggest some of my thoughts about this topic. And after that, we will return to this slide in order to have a discussion. So if it's okay, please let me know and we will start. And please write all your ideas in chat in the meanwhile. Yes? Jody, do you want to ask something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waving at the car behind me. I'm driving, so I'm gonna listen.
Okay, okay. If you don't mind, I will mute you, okay? And you will be able to unmute yourself when we will discuss, okay?
Please.
So, abundance and happiness. A long time ago, several years ago, I created some, as I have said, hypothesis, which I shared lots of time in Russian and in some of my master classes in English as well. And but we haven't discussed this with you before. So the idea is that sometimes we misinterpret the very notion of abundance, because most of people think that abundance is plenty of everything in excessive amount, and you can take everything you wish, and you can store and collect as many resources, including money, attention, respect, love, material goods, and many other valuable things, as much as we can, and that's the abundance. But in one of our dialogues with my clients, we came to the some maybe insight that there are some polarities, and the real abundance is something in the middle. When we are speaking about scarcity thinking, we have in our vision something in the shortage. So when we think that we don't have enough resources, or when we think that we have this redundancy, it's also the scarcity feeling, because in this case, we are afraid of losing those valuable things which we have. And only when we have the real abundance, which is in the middle, we understand these wonderful rules, if I'm not mistaken, from the mathematics about necessity and sufficiency. So the true abundance is about having just precisely what you need, not less and not more. And in this case, you have this peace of mind, this understanding of all your real true needs will be satisfied. You don't need to be worried about losing something or storing something or defending something from somebody. And only in this middle golden balance place, you can feel safe and you can act out of this abundance, out of love and out of understanding that you really can share. Because we know lots of examples of people who live in so-called abundance, but they are not really happy, and moreover, they are not ready to share. They are not ready to suggest something valuable to others, and moreover, they are some sort of neurotics people who are constantly judge and condemn and mistrust and suspect all people around them. So that's the idea. And what's the connection to happiness? In this case, I would like to also remind you our approach to two facets of happiness. One is the common perception of happiness as a happiness of consumption, getting pleasure and being fulfilled and being contented with what we have. But the other notion of happiness is the happiness from the Aristotelian eudaimonistic happiness, which is about creation, caring, sharing, and developing the human virtues. That's about becoming better together with others. So again, we are talking about different aspects of happiness. It doesn't mean that one aspect of happiness is better than another. I think that in an integral approach, we are ready to combine and to integrate both of them. But it's really important to define what makes us happy when we achieve something or have something or get something or consume something, and what makes us happy. And I think that the second happiness, which is about creation and caring and sharing, it's the more long-lasting happiness. So that's my idea, my humble vision of this. And now the hypothesis is that thinking determines the reality. And let me stop on this and suggest you to maybe somehow relate to these ideas. Maybe you are not, you don't think that it's so, and perhaps you have another experience, or maybe this hypothesis needs some amendments and some additions. So please feel free. I don't think that we need to somehow have the sequence, the strictly rules of who will be the first. So please take your microphone and share your vision on this. First of all, what the abundance is, or what is the difference between this scarcity mindset and abundance thinking. Are there any connections to happiness and abundance in our perceiving of reality, inner reality and outer reality? So let's discuss. And here if you don't mind, I will stop sharing. And I would really be happy if someone of you will be able to tell your own story, your own vision, and your own understanding. Who will be the first? Okay. Yes, Lev. Great. Welcome.
I'm very shy, so it was a difficult decision to speak, but I was really inspired by the way you presented this polarity and the abundance in the middle. It was very interesting for me to see. And I love the comment from, I believe, Wendy, about the indigenous people, that they have much less, I guess, not always, but most often, this mindset of scarcity, and very often more sort of inner feeling of abundance. My perception looking at my life and people around me is when we have isolation, when we have our sort of separate egos, we definitely feel disconnected from this life energy, the flow of life energy through our being. And then, of course, we need to compensate it one way or another. So it's the inner state of connectedness or disconnectedness from life itself. And we call it being connected with our community or with nature, but really it's the energy of life, which is coming from different sort of dimensions. When we're isolated, we need to get more in order to feel more stable, more secure, etc. And when we are connected, we don't need so much. And it's interesting listening to you and preparing for our conversation today. I remembered my student years in France or in other countries where I lived in student dormitories, in small rooms, very small. But it was always a total feeling of abundance because I was really connected, well, with life itself, of course, but also with other students, with people in our community, with the learning process. And I'm 49 now, but when I was 20 and 25, those student experiences really, I remember them with a sense of very strong sense of abundance of everything in life, despite the fact that I didn't have any material, special material goods or respect or anything of this kind. So my contribution to our discussion is that when we feel connected or interconnected with everything around us, we feel complete. And this sense of completeness creates the sense of abundance. And then we don't need to consume so much resources, etc., etc. And here I happily pass it on to Gail. And again, thank you for bringing us all together. Very interesting. Thank you, Gail.
I agree with you, Lev. It's very, very interesting. I have one thought, though, as I was reading and listening. You know, the indigenous cultures had very few verbs, very few nouns, and almost all verbs. And when I read these lists, they're very static. As if we're always going to have trust, as if we're always going to be in this particular place. And life isn't that easy or that simple. It's actually far more complex, which is a good thing because we know how to deal with complexity. So just thinking about some of the words as we make these shift papers, which I think are really important, that life is a process and it's always moving and changing and shifting. It's within boundaries that we're really looking at, and I think. And so it's just my comment in terms of thinking about security. Our future is unexplored, and right now we don't know. And we'll never go back to normal where we can expect everything to be this way. At least I hope we won't. So, you know, what are we actually talking about when we put these verbs or nouns and adjectives together? I would just like to see something a little more dynamic, because I think it's more human and more life-giving, actually.
Great, thank you so much, Gail. Wendy.
Yes, Marina, lovely to see you in my country. Hey, I was just thinking, I'm reading a couple of books at the moment on the nature of work and why we work and what workers look like over time and how we spend our time. And both books raise the ancient way and the Bushman way of effectively abundance. But I kind of like the word enoughness, that they didn't need more than they had, and that's the ultimate state to be. I think I kind of aspire to being in that state, that enoughness is a great thing. And that the difficulty with the modern world is that we've created this aspirational world where we constantly are told we haven't got enough. So we're constantly aspiring to have more than we have, whereas many of the indigenous peoples were just joyful to have what they had, and also were equally joyful to give to others. So that reciprocity and the giving back. So I was thinking about that simply because I'm reading those books at the moment, and also that happiness is such a transient thing. I'm much more interested in the word flourishing, which implies the process that Gail was talking about, that it has to embrace difficulty and challenge and resilience and struggle and this wonderfully interesting, complex life. So for me, it's far more interesting than states of happiness which are here and gone, and that abundance really comes down to simplicity. So yeah, that's my bit.
Thank you so much. So Alexei, I think, was also raised.
Yes, thank you so much,
Yes.
Marina, for bringing us together. And I totally agree with all my colleagues. I just want to add that for me, abundance and happiness related to the word feelings, and feelings related to the word presence. And I love this formula. Happiness, it's reality minus your expectations. I think sometimes we are too much in our head. And if we get more connected to our feelings, to our perception of what's going on inside us and externally, outside us, and to see the beauty and magic and other inspirational things around us, I think we can get these feelings of happiness and abundance more. That's what I would add. Thank you.
Thank you. Merlin, Violetta, maybe you would also like to say anything?
Thank you. Thanks, Marina. Yeah, and thank you for the provocations and the suggestions that people are making. I love the verbing and enoughness as a beautiful description. Maybe we have to do enouging, something like that. And I was thinking about looking for indicators of abundance through beauty and truth and goodness. And maybe in our world these days, it's hard to determine what is truth. We're constantly being challenged with that. And goodness, I think we know in our hearts, is abundantly around us. It's often disclaimed or denied or ignored. But I personally believe it's always there. I have a fundamental belief in the goodness of humans, and that is the source of abundance. Beauty is, I think, available to us everywhere, because we can even find it in the dandelion coming up through a broken concrete. We can find it in the persistence of some kind of life form, I think, in any kind of a habitat, and just be able to be moved by it. So I think the way I would connect with Alexei is that the feelings for me are embodying abundance. So not just emotions, but somewhere in my body, I can actually feel embodied abundance. So those are just some of the thoughts that are coming up for me as we're talking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Merlin. Violetta, what do you think?
Thank you very much. Most interesting discussion and very provocative question, really. Listening to all these great initial thoughts, I got one question in my head. Why are we discussing this today? What brought us to the point that we have to discuss happiness and abundance? I'm not sure if I can add much more. I mean, there are lots of smart comments, but I would maybe invite us that we are a product of industrial civilization. It's been going on about 400 years now. And industrial civilization has a certain type of rules in order to sustain itself. And we know that systems have a very strong persistence drive integrated in their behavior. So they fight for their existence. And I think industrial civilization needs this constant production and evolution of technology, and needs consumers, and it needs to constantly build and grow and expand. So it develops a certain type of mentality in people. Why did industrial civilization even had a chance to evolve? It's a good question, but looking the dominant players of the current industrial period, we see that Europe in particular was struggling with hunger, with plague, with many very negative forces of social development, and it went out. It developed certain technologies that it didn't need before in order to sustain, live. And then that was largely related to force as well. And it developed a certain type of mentality and social structures. And all of a sudden, the same mean technology helped us to connect globally and started to discuss and discover other thoughts and step back into the old civilizations. And all of a sudden we have that everything in front of us, and we ask ourselves, is there anything else but Western civilization mindset? So I'd be a bit careful with pushing for happiness concept, because it's again just one side of a very complex human, emotional, spiritual, physical, intellectual, social, and energy framework. So what I feel that we are after is a more fulfilling life, because through this thousands of years of evolution of humankind, we, more on a common level, started to appreciate sincerity. We created space for emotions and for relationships that were privileged of few, or were in old cultures a normal integrating glue of community. But the nature challenged at least the Western world with it, and somehow makes us pushed us in a different direction. So I do hope that through global discussions and the concentration of our global awareness, and then that would follow with much more enriched consciousness, we can find a better balance. Because constant state of happiness might be very tiring. At least for myself, in this stage of my life, I'm seeking balance of everything, trying to get all these 6 dimensions that I feel inside myself to get in balance, and to try to help communities around me to find the balance where they are free to manifest what they believe or feel or see is the right thing to do. Let me stop here.
Great, thank you so much for this deep diving into the process. And you know, you are some sort of the highlighting the next question. So thank you so much for this small bridge. And Alice, please, what about you?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting to listen to Violetta when she was talking about basically where we've been and why we are in this, I guess, type of situation. Where I live now, I just wanted to give you an example of someone also talked about indigenous communities. So I live in the countryside, in a very rural place, and it's taught me so many lessons about actually abundance and simplicity and balance is what Violetta was talking about. And I feel like the people out in the these are people who live very, very, if you think of poverty in Africa, it's the definition, what you define as, oh my goodness, people are poor. But then they're genuinely content humans. Like you don't even hear people dying over, they're not on any anxiety pills. They don't have the kind of diseases that suffer from things that, like, where the roller coaster of the place where I work in the city. So I find it very interesting, the two dynamics, the two worlds that pretty much I am in, because I have to work definitely in a completely different space, although I'm pretty much 90% remote. And to me, what it has taught me is the people out here in the rural areas are very, very content humans, very content, that to a point that even what you would define as poor, to them, it's like, as long as I have a place where I can heal from, and mainly, of course, they use nature to heal. Food, they use very, very basic means of survival. I mean, of tilling the land. They don't need, like, I don't know how many CC vehicles and air condition this and that to move around. They walk most of the time, but they're very, very content. The level of what they call it, insecurity is very, very low. Like, so what is the definition of abundance to me? I think when you'd say you're pretty much a content human being, and also you're in balance of your needs and other people's needs, or the community is where you are. I find it very interesting, find what is the definition of poor people, poor kids, and very, very happy, like smiling all the time. They're not complaining, they're just happy. So that's I think, just summarize it, it would be like finding pretty much that balance. Like, I guess, what is happiness? If I say happiness, some people find happiness in different ways. It's like, if I'm like, is it like laughing and all that time? I think, like Violetta said, you'd be exhausted. But being content would be a better word for me to define my space, my connectedness with the community, being able to work with them, relate with them, raising my children with different people in the area that I live. So yeah, that's my definition of abundance.
Thank you so much, Alice. Great. Michael, what do you think?
Thank you, Alice. I want to thank everybody for giving me so many pieces of the puzzle. And you know, what's come forward for me is that this is it's a really deep portal. It opens up inquiry, you know, the question, and I think that for me is, you know, is the opportunity to really ask myself, you know, what is abundance and scarcity, and what's the difference between the abundance mindset and the abundance consciousness, the scarcity mindset and the scarcity consciousness. An example that Alice brought forward was that in the villages in Guinea-Bissau, the people that I'm interacting with, to the outside world, to my eyes, it might be that they are living in scarcity, not having some of the basic necessities. The borehole well doesn't provide enough water for them, for example, right? So to my mind, that looks like a scarcity of water. And yet their consciousness is not of that. So I'm going back to a village in February for a naming ceremony. My ancestors came from this particular region. And the young man that I'm working with over there, he told me that they're going to have a big feast, you know, that they're going to get a cow and a goat and a pig, and they're going to have chickens and all of these things, right? And I thought, well, wait, why is that? It's just for me. He says, no, it's for everyone. It's for, you know, the neighboring village. We're going to invite everybody here. You know, so they don't have a mindset of scarcity, even though physically I might judge that, you know, they don't have a lot, but the consciousness. So it brings up to me that there's a difference between the actual physical experience and the mindset or the consciousness. And so for me, the opportunity is to explore that, like what is that? The first thing that comes to me is this idea of individuality versus community, that I am a single entity, floating around disconnected from community. And the opposite mindset that I am a part of, or as they say in South Africa, Ubuntu, I am because we are. I'm a part of a community that I am not in scarcity, or that I am in fact in abundance because I have such an abundance of connections, such an abundance of life. And, I feel that that consciousness in living cities, that, we have a wealth of connections amongst us that are just ripe, to be harvested, to be used. And I feel very rich in this conversation, hearing different perspectives and, being inspired to think outside of the box. So thank you, Marina, for bringing us together for this. I'm very energized.
Thank you all for all your wisdom, So, Margie, would you want to contribute? You are muted. Please turn on your sound. We can't hear you.
Oh, how about now? Can you hear me? It was not on.
Great.
Yeah, it was. First of all, I want to say thank you. It is such a joy to be listening to all of you while I'm, packing things and putting different things in different boxes. It was nourishing, and that brings me a bit to the questioning of the topic. And while I was listening, different images came up to me. And the first one that came up to me was my daughter. I think she could hardly just start speaking. And I asked her, it was my firstborn and a mother, and I was kind of like fishing for a compliment. And I asked her, who do you love the most in the world? And I think she was maybe 2. She just really could start speaking. And she said, she thought a bit like this. And there I was like waiting to hug her and say, oh, thank you. What if I was in my, new mom trip? And she really had a little moment with herself. And like, she looked a little hand and everything. And she goes, me. And now the reason why I am, this image came back to me, because of course my first reaction was a little bit of a shock. And then I thought, great, like you feel complete, you feel enough upon yourself. And so when the other image that kind of relates to that came to me to show the contrast of that is when I first came to France. To Paris, I wouldn't live here. I'd go back and forth from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia to Paris. And so here I was in Addis, where, of course, in the city, there's like buildings and everything, whatever, but there's a large amount of quite extreme poverty. And if you go out of the country, when it's literally starving people, where it's known to be one of the poorest countries in the world, and it's very visible around. Yet, even with what is in the GNP idea considered very poor, I felt like so much abundance in the way they dealt with the day, in the way like, oh, we have food for lunch. Oh, well, we'll have dinner, And there was such, gratitude and joy of life. And then I'd come to Paris. And this is, of course, most of the people that I see with all this joy and gratitude and sense of abundance are actually from a point of view of the Western, like terribly poor. And my God, the poor Africans were to send them some clothes and things like that. But I'd come to Paris, and then it was my first time. And of course, I'm like, wow, what an amazing city. It's really beautiful and abundant, It's like golden bridges and this and the other. And yet I felt people were just complaining all the time. Like everything, like it's sunny, it's too sunny, it's raining. Oh my God, it's raining. And everything was like, and it felt like such poverty. And what I understood is this need to accumulate a lot of things, and to then consider oneself rich or abundant came from a sort of not feeling good enough or full enough in oneself. So all this to say that abundance for me is completely related with love, feeling love for oneself and feeling loved by the other. Because honestly, I feel that's when someone feels the most abundant, you know, and it can be in a little dirt house in the middle of nowhere in the desert of Mauritania, and you know, this young lady making her little tea, and she's so happy that her husband, and after a few days, could finally get some sugar. But why are they feeling so much abundance? Because they have love, and you know, they're together, and I feel, for me anyway, and that's the reason why I said that. And I started by saying it was nourishing to listen to all of you while I was arranging, because I feel an abundant world. You know, just, you know, I came back from Switzerland and I had energy like to share for tons of people because I felt abundant, and my abundance vibrational heart was in resonance and was feeling filled. And really, and what a living city would be is that people who are feeling full of love for themselves, that they can share it and they're not scared and hiding and protecting their money or this, or think they don't have enough and need a second car, and all these things who come after, you know. And then I understand that even my daughter, now she's a teenager, the same, I love myself, I'm abundant, grew up in Paris, and now she, you know, she doesn't feel good enough. She doesn't have like same shoes as her friends and all that, and that's lack of self-worth, self-esteem, so creates for me the lack of abundance. I feel it's not just a mindset, you know, to change your mind. It's just something very natural. But what I'm feeling is that the society for hundreds of years became so, you know, money became a sort of a god of its own, and kind of like became this external thing that decided what, you know, my sense of worth and value should be. So yeah, I guess to summarize my spontaneous, enthusiastic share on the images that came to me, abundance is love. Love for oneself and love for the other, and that makes us want to share, you know. And in Ethiopia, people will be having one little simple piece of bread with tea, and it's the only meal, and somebody comes in and they'll say ennebla. Ennebla means let's eat together, and just the idea of eating together is already eating more, even though it's a small piece of bread. So yeah, that's my joy of my love of abundance, that of course I don't see here every time, and I feel that it's possible for everyone, and it's possible we can, yeah, maybe all go back to that. Anyway, I feel that when I'm with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for your love and for your abundance. You know, a very intimate story from my life. The peak of abundance I felt was when I was in the hospital with COVID, and after I came back home, because having the opportunity of smelling the coffee, of tasting the piece of bread, of sensing the sunbeams on my face while walking around the park. You know, it's an incredible feeling that I'm speaking, and I'm shivering just right now, because, although it was 4 years ago, not for 2 years ago, sorry, in 2021. So, you know, that was the peak of abundance. It dealt nothing with some statuses, some wealth, some getting some things, money, and so on. It was just the opportunity to feel fully alive, and to feel free, and to feel capable of doing anything I can, and contributing and loving the very being alive. So yeah, thank you so much. Violetta, would we give a word?
Yes, please give a word to Sue and Kimberly, because they haven't spoken yet, and I'll wait.
Yeah, yes, great. Thank you so much. So Sue and then Kim.
Oh, thank you. I'm loving this. I'm happy. What comes to me very much is, from what I'm hearing, and thank you, Marina, for bringing us all together, is it's an inner state. It's, we've talked about mindset here, haven't we, and our set point from where our belief systems, which can hamper us or help us grow, and being conscious of that, as Michael says. And then there's conditions of living, you know, when we focus on the material world, it makes us happy just for a short period of time. But I think what I'm sensing when I'm listening to some of the words that are coming out, like richness of life and wealth of connections and enough, these beautiful big words, beautiful words of expansion, is about voluntary choices. Because I sincerely believe that if we don't have choices, or we're not given choices, and we're not heard, and we're not seen or appreciated, or have affection, then the happiness dwindles, because we this is what our heart seeks, and this gives us love. So I'm seeing that this opportunity within Living Cities Earth and the work that I do as well is opening people to that inner state of well-being through being able to make voluntary choices from an individual perspective that help with their abundance. So thank you.
Yes, indeed. Kim, please welcome.
Thank you. This is really nice, and so much is resonating with me. I'm writing things down. Something I think maybe to add to the conversation, I just came back from kind of an impromptu trip around the Great Lakes, and all five Great Lakes in 5 days, which doesn't seem possible, but there is a route driving. And while it was so beautiful, especially up in Canada, I'm on the southern shore of Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. The most amazing part of the trip was meeting some people, some I knew online, and then, got to connect in real life or whatever in person. And all of these people are living in what I would say right relationship with land and water and animals and all these other syntony spheres that we talk about here sometime. And not like just, oh, I'm a good caretaker of this land. It's actually in relationship where people are sitting by the river and asking questions and getting understanding, and then having that, one example, that's direction from the river is now going into part of a town strategic plan. So there were all kinds of examples like that. So I would say one way for, happy cities or happy anywhere is to, really live in full relationship with all that surround us. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Violeta, what do you like to add?
Well, I feel very excited now because I feel we're getting into something I cannot name yet, but I will try to contribute a little personal experience, and maybe somebody can really articulate well what we're saying. The last 11 days, I was at the epicenter of the biggest natural disaster that happened in my country. It was incredible dump of water. I feel that atmospheric river just was dumped over 1/3 of Slovenia. The biggest rain, the biggest avalanches, mud avalanches and floods in the history of the country. But that's not what I really wanted to share. I wanted to share how we reacted as people, because I was up in the mountains, hardly knew my neighbors because I moved up there partially only 4 years ago. I knew my immediate neighbors a little bit. But all of a sudden, we were like a big family. First of all, because the water was everywhere, the little brooks became huge rivers, bringing down from the mountains enormous amounts of water, wood, trees, rocks. We were just waving to each other across this torrential waters. And we felt so close, just waving, being alive. And then when the waters calmed down in about 36 hours, farmers, because me and my neighbor, my closest neighbor, were trapped between two of these big rivers that usually are cute little streams. And they brought this, we call them floss, this huge pieces of wood, and throw them over this still fierce brooks. And we could walk, we were confident to walk over those piles of wood, shake hands, we're hugging each other. And something that we would never probably do in a normal conditions. And then the third day, because all the roads, all the connections, everything was completely destroyed, we just started together. People walked from hour and a half from the farms up in the hill and brought to me and my neighbor, because we didn't have farms, we were sort of just living in those little houses. They brought food. They made fresh bread, and they brought all kinds of goodies along. And then we took our tools, you know, shovels and everything else. And we started to make first footpaths where the roads used to be. And then the next stage was that we started to clean the small slats and started to make little roads that the tractors could use, and started to communicate with each other and gathering. And all of a sudden, you know, we were in a week of volunteering, collaborative work, done so much on our own before anybody could reach us from the valley, and the valley was completely destroyed anyway. So what I'm trying to say, that compassion, collaboration, direct engagements over a shared common short and long-term goals, in a way, care came forward. And that is in a countryside. And let me make the whole story short. I felt so privileged and humble. And it was really hard for me after 11 days, when the big machines finally got to us and helped us to remove the biggest obstacles, to be able to make some sort of improvisational roads. I got out and I was reluctant to go to the city, back to the city. I really was. And I was wondering, how can we bring this sincerity, this simplicity of life into the cities? Why have we made the life in the city so complicated, isolated, so, you know, rushing all the time? And those people live, work, provide themselves with everything that they need. And they have a big heart all the time open for everyone in need. They're not going to offer it on a day-to-day basis all the time. But whenever there is a need, they extend their hands and they're willing to share whatever they have, you know, on the table with the community. And every day we got together, we, you know, communicated what has been done. We made plans for the next day. You know, people started telling jokes. We were even singing at one point. And then we went to our homes, and next morning this continued. So how can we bring this back to the cities? Because that's who we are. That's who we actually are. And it's so easy to be good. That's my message. It's really easy to be good. Why are we taking the high, heavy, difficult road and constantly try not to be good in so many ways, when it's so easy to be good? So this is now on my mind. I've been now in the city for 3 days, and gosh, I mean, my heart is still up there, going back next week just to help, to continue to help with renovations and everything. But how can we bring this in the city? These gathering places, these shared goals that actually matter to people and they are willing to engage over.
Yes, thank you so much, Violeta, for this this example. You know, that's the very question which I'm seeking for. Being in Russia and now being far from my native country, but constantly looking for the answer. How to remember what is to be a human being, not only amidst the disaster, but when we are in the prosperity, when everything is okay, and not to remember about us, about these principles of Ubuntu, but thinking about it. And one of the questions I wanted to discuss with you a little bit later is the role, Wendy mentioned it as well, the role of media, of education. So let me share the next part. We just came to this connectedness of our external and internal state or conditions of our life. Because again, we see that their connectedness is reversed, not the straightforward. People who are in disasters, people who are in poverty, they are more likely to feel this state of abundance in themselves than people who live in their prosperity, in the flourishing world, in a well-being. So I have also, maybe a couple of years ago, that's our second question, by the way. So the connectedness of this mindset of abundance and scarcity mindset, and how it influences their environment, their social relations, and how, while competing and rivalry, we lose our resources. So I have created this table with the use of the integral approach of Ken Wilber, and I have tried to create these 3 circles of different of scaling the mindset. And speaking from the culture, if we are talking about the culture of consumption, creation, and being unified, if we are in the culture of this consumption and being non-contented with what we have, and as Margie told us, that people being in their prosperous cities, in most of the situations, they feel not happy, not contented, not abundant. They feel that they don't have something. They complain to the weather and other silly things. So in this situation, we live in scarcity because we want something which we don't have. And of course, in this situation, we have to compete. We have to fight for resources whenever, whatever it could be. And of course, all our social structure, most of Western structures, social structures, they are built on these dominant hierarchies. When somebody has some power, some resources, some money, and they have more capabilities and more opportunities than people who have not. And at the same time, if we could somehow alter or transcend our mindset to this creation, to this sense of connectedness, to this with this sense of enoughness about to the love to others and to ourselves, first of all, about which we have also said, it gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves in a different way. We don't need to look for something anymore, but we can be self-contented. We can rely on ourselves and our own capabilities, and we can start sharing. We can start collaborating. We can start partnering in our behavior quadrant, and social systems. We can grow out of dominant hierarchies. Maybe somehow transform to the network communities. And I think that our organization, Living Cities Earth, is the precisely community which can help people alter this mindset and find their inner resources and find their ways to implement their resources into this networking organization, into this community of sharing and caring. And at last, while talking about the happiness of pure being, happiness of service and creation, something in unity with all other people, and after all other people may be in unity with other species and the planet itself, as Marilyn likes to tell us about the Gaia and some sort of co-creation with Gaia, who is the mother of all of us. So I think in this case, in this culture, in this mindset, we can come to the sense of abundance and start not only collaborate and partner, but also to co-create and help to emerge something absolutely new in the ecosystemic way. And here is what Ken Wilber mentioned as growth hierarchies. When we understand that we are all the part of the living ecosystem, and I think that it is really connected with these principles of indigenous people, especially Ubuntu, which Mike mentioned, that we are not separate things, separate bodies, separate entities. We are, each of us, the whole, the united, the one entity. And in this case, it's an absolutely complete understanding of the role of each person individually. And I think that in this case, we don't think about, am I contented with what I have? But it's more about what can I do in order to provide this collective sharing and caring and being prosperous together. So that's the idea which I wanted to share with you through the lens of this equal model of Wilber. I was trying to find the first of all the way to see this interconnectedness and influence of what we think to what we express, to how we behave, and what social systems support these mindsets. And I am absolutely convinced that we should start from our vision, from our understanding of each person and of communities. And I really believe that Living Cities Earth is the organization who can bring this transcendence to their culture and to the mindsets of people. So that's the slide which I would like to suggest you to discuss about how do you see this connectedness and influence of what we think, of what is produced by our societies, of what we are imposed to think, and how it is reflects in our social systems, in our relationships, in the behavior of people, and what can be done maybe in order to change the situation. Is it really possible to do it? And you know, these ideas of sharing economy, I just, when I was preparing for our meeting, I was thinking about, is it possible in this individualistic world to somehow persuade people to share their resources, to pay for the community, but not for our own, without thinking that I should not pay for my neighbor, something like that. Or maybe the very notion of money as a god, as we have already discussed. Maybe we could somehow come to the community in some future when we do not need money at all. So let's discuss. And Mike is the first, so please welcome.
Boy, I am just so inspired. So many ideas just downloading in the moment about what could be done to change the situation. I heard recently in one of my gathering, a healing circle I attend, that we on planet Earth are following the truths of dead men, and that these men, they have shaped and formed the very consciousness that we are, the map that we're following. And maps are important. I mean, they're valuable. If you're in Los Angeles, it's important that you have a map of the LA region. But if you're in LA and you have a map of New York or a map of Amsterdam, that map is no good. And I think, listening to, is it Violetta? Is that your name, Violetta? Listening to your story, just really brought us all together in the energetic of what it's like to come together in disaster. I grew up in Chicago. We had tornadoes. And when we had a tornado, the neighborhood would be devastated, and yet we came together just like you described. And I just see this opportunity for LCE to be the global storyteller, to tell the story about the disaster that's happening, because we've been living in this consciousness of competition, of Newtonian consciousness, that we are individual little molecules floating around, separate from each other. And then Darwin said, well, it's the survival of the fittest, and none of that is true. What's true for us today, maybe it was true for them, 150 years ago. Okay, I'll grant them that. But today, there's a new truth, right? That's really about our togetherness, our connection, our understanding, and learning, because we're learning how to be new humans. Barbara Marx Hubbard used to call it something like transhuman. We're growing into Homo universalis. We're like a new entity on the planet, So I'm excited when this comes into the space. Like, it just really energizes me, because I feel like I'm one of the imaginal cells, rising up to help bring in the new humanity. So thank you all for giving me a piece of the puzzle, waking me up today.
Absolutely fantastic. It's you, I think, the next.
Thank you. Michael, I so agree with you. And what came to mind the moment that you said about Newton is I'm passionate about him because he lived down the road. He's just 20 miles away. And we go and we do meditations around his tree. Dan Siegel came, etc., so that we could bring the quantum world. And one of his quotes is that he said, allegedly, that he was standing on the shoulders of giants, and never to disrespect, which I know you haven't, the fact that the work that some of these people did is so incomplete. I know from Newton, his spiritual work went off to the University of Jerusalem. He was more of a spiritual man than he was these truths are coming out now. So my point here really is back to the inner state, and how each of us, from telling our stories, which creates the inner state, how we can expand out. And I'm very influenced by the work of somebody called Richard Davidson, who is a neuroscientist in the University of Wisconsin. And he talks about well-being and happiness being a skill. And that really touches base with me, because if it's a skill, it means it can be learnt. And if it can be learnt, it can be taught, but not in the teaching way of I tell you and then you remember, because you won't. But we can experience stories together in community and come together in this loving center of communities in the physical and like this amazingly online, to really start to draw out what that community needs from the inner state of the individuals, and then back to hearing their voices and being listened to. So if I could just share, Richard Davidson's point here is the neuroscience of happiness: sustained positive emotions, recovering from negative emotions, empathy, altruism, and pro-social behavior. and being mindful, moving away from mind wandering to be mindful. And those four skills, I believe, is something that I'm doing in my own personal life and in my personal work. Maybe something Living Cities Earth could embrace as a, you know, as a start point. So thank you.
Oh, that's absolutely great. Could you share this piece of text? Maybe we could.
I'll pop it in the chat.
Yes, that's great. How to promote this idea? So how to share it? Absolutely fantastic. Margie, you raised the hand, I think.
Hold on, let me get my camera on with my boxes. I was very inspired with everything that was shared. This actually, for me, you know, they talked about the imaginal cell. It's actually contagious. You know, there's it's sort of the energy of sharing and caring is contagious, and that's what, for me, the Living City energy is. That's what I lived while I was in Switzerland in the meeting. What I wanted to share is, at one point you talked about education and the importance of education, and for me it comes back to, you know, what I was saying about my daughter, you know, her feeling enough and full and just loving herself fully. And I feel that the education system, you know, I remember when I was a bit more rebellious and younger, I used to say that the worst thing that happens to the African continent is not slavery, but it's the education system, because it's the education system that creates an inner slave, you know, one that says, like, you know, you're lacking this, you need to know all of this, you have to have this degree, this thing, this amount of money, this job. And so that this education system that we're talking about and what Living City team on Everyone's Spirit is about is coming back to what's natural, this consciousness, this sort of, you know, as you said, like, wow, the taste, you know, after the Thich Nhat Hanh has a beautiful expression. He says, no mud, no lotus. So he actually kind of praises suffering because it's like a gift to then appreciate what we didn't appreciate and took it as a given because it was there. And, you know, when you talked about the taste, and after COVID, not tasting and tasting again, you're like, oh my God, is this what coffee tastes like? But so the idea is maybe to decondition a lot of like limiting beliefs that were not with any negative intention, but been put on everyone with a certain form of education that felt that they should be always more, and just always more became itself an illness, and that not enough, and then always more has not enough, and I'm not good enough. And yet when it's amazing how, you know, we meet in the space, and when for example, when we first met, Marina, we were meeting in a space of meeting, you know, I was just very and quite intimidated by your bio and open to listen, and vice versa. And then when there is that openness and not feeling I'm not good enough or I have to gain something, and then it's just sharing, then it's just everyone wins. So I feel that's what the whole idea is that to start with a sense of we are already abundant, and so we will encourage, already use our abundance to create all these wonderful things that we're creating, and therefore create a conscious awakening with the group to for those who need this kind of energy to support with their capacities and their money and everything they can, so that this natural way of being can be returned to humanity. Like, I mean, for me, I'm part of this Pranic Festival and Breatharian community, and they claim that it's a natural state of being, meaning that in the future, the only way the world will survive, the human world will survive, the earth is like no issues, the human race will survive, is if people start consuming not only less, but not at all, in terms of food intake, because people can live with just like love, sun, and whatever. And there is now a modern circle of breatharian people, which is about 100,000 and everything. And though, like everything else, I feel, and what I love about Living Cities is I be me, you be you, and everybody feeling abundant to just be themselves, you know, whatever preference of food or eating they have, with the consciousness that, of course, too much of meat eating of one part of the world is creating poverty in another part of the world. But So the natural state of being is not necessarily all eating one thing or all doing one thing, but this diversity of community that we are already, that's so abundant. And anyway, for me, I have no doubt that it's a contagious thing and can only grow just because of the amazing people that are on it. So I don't know, I went a bit on a whim here, but it's just spontaneously what came in terms of re-educating ourselves with what we naturally have and within us is what makes us living. And when we're alive, then our cities are alive. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Marilyn, would you like to add something? You made a very good messages in the chat. Perhaps you could also express your opinion.
Yes, well, I'm just following the brilliance that everybody else is bringing here and noticing like what Majida is speaking about as the worst horror is the education system. And I know how much Gail has spent her life creating that as a positive, abundant, nourishing, alive way of encouraging children from the youngest to you know, us older people. And it's sometimes a really good reality check to get that kind of message shared, and it just wakes you up from an assumption that I might have made in a different way. So I really appreciate people's deep integrity in how they're engaging this with story and real experience. And I can't help but sort of have some connection to what's happening to me and the people in Eco-Village Findhorn, because we're going through a massive change, which at first we thought we had some maybe unique experience of, because we've been hit by waves of Brexit impacts and then the COVID and then fires and then energy costs. And I just am going tonight to a whole different call with a group of people called Findhorn Fellows who are from around the world. Maybe some of them are even on this call and I'm just not aware of it. But just reading the extent to which the empathy and care that they hold and want for Findhorn, and at the same time are sharing, well, you do not have a unique experience on this. It's happening all around the world. And I do think that's one of the opportunities that I see and experience in Living Cities already, that by sharing our stories, we wake up to both universal experience, but then I feel like we're stretching beyond into a way of seeing the world, of being conscious, that we dare to ask the difficult questions, but we also have enough aliveness in us to play with possible answers. So I don't see us sinking into a morose kind of pitying ourselves for not having enough, because I think that we find in ourselves such examples, both personally, like Majida's story of her daughter, in her first impulse to find it in herself, and then we find it in each other. I think that there are so many stories around the world of positive goodness and beauty and truth, that if we could simply weave and knit them together and pollinate each other, then I believe we will be doing enormous good in the world. So those are just some of the things that are coming up for me as others are sharing from such deep places and from around the world. I really so much appreciate that. Thanks, Marina, for calling the questions plural. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, there is a great conversation in the chat about what goes first, systems or culture. And Gail asked, does it should be a symbiotic reordering? What should be the first, what goes the first? And first of all, you know, what, just for us, not global governance, not people somewhere, but just we. what can we start doing or feeling or telling in another way in order to launch these positive changes in the world? Should we start from changing the systems of education, the systems of the narrative in the social media and in the mass media? And do we have an opportunity to influence these big corporations? Can we start from changing the culture, and how can we change the culture of whole nations, for example? And are we able to influence greatly just starting from ourselves? So I think that we could go to the final circle. And if you have maybe another 5 minutes, we will finish in 10 minutes. So the main idea is to maybe find some ways and find some steps just for us, for living cities Earth, not about the humanity, about someone who could solve all the problems. What really we could do in order to provide this new cultural phenomenon? Or maybe shall we start from changing the systems, and can we do it? So what do you think? What can we do in order to augment resources required to provide flourishing for humanity and all other species on Earth? Is it possible? And if possible, then how, where can we start? And I think that this final round could be the great contribution, not only to our community, but to the whole humanity, because we are speaking online. And I really hope that this collection of wisdom today would be spread in many, many communities, in many, many cities, and we will share the recording with many cities of the world. So I think that Mike was the first. I stopped sharing my screen, and Mike, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. You know, what comes forward for me is some of you know that my background's in cybersecurity. And so when companies experience a crisis, an event, an incident, they have this big cyber security incident, maybe they have a hack, right? They immediately realize that they need to change something inside of the company. They realize that the millions that they have invested in being hard and crunchy on the outside is not effective because they're soft and chewy on the inside, which means that the culture is not one of safety. So the awareness and the mindset of the people are such that, well, I don't have to be safe because, you know, IT, they're going to do it up top. They'll protect me. And so they bring in somebody like me to begin to change the culture. And the culture changes inside of corporations by the stories that people are telling themselves and telling one another. Some of those stories are like, well, we don't have to worry about clicking on a link. You know, they've got these firewalls, they'll protect us. So they tell stories that contribute to the vulnerability of the environment. And in a way, if we look at the planet, if we look at Mother Earth and our societies and our systems, you know, we've got these kind of stories that are perpetuating, you know, competition, you know, individuality, you know, that especially in the United States, this thing about rugged individualism, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you know, that kind of thing. It's a story that we're telling each other. And I kind of see us as these incredible storytellers, these weavers of the vision. Somebody put in the chat that the imaginal cells are contagious. I love that idea because our stories, they really connect with this undercurrent of consciousness that's rising up, the mycelium, you know, underneath, right? It's the meta story. And when people hear this story, you know, something connects in them. So I just see us as being like the proverbial storytellers, you know, in the many indigenous cultures, you know, the keeper of the memory is the storyteller, the one that the story is passed down to generation after generation. And I just feel like we are ideally suited to create these venues, for people to come sit around the campfire with us as we, tell the story about what's emerging, and who we really are. So that's what's got me excited this morning. Thanks again for bringing us all together, Marina.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. Storytellers bringing people together around the campfires. It's absolutely fantastic. And I like the message from Maji that one step at a time in a contagious way, be the change we want to see in to see for the world. That's absolutely fantastic. Kimberly, you are the next. So please.
I'm trying to remember exactly what the question was that you asked, but I think the response was similar to what Marina said, and I'm reminded of what Alexander always brings, and to just be the system, embody everything, all of our practices, like right now, because there's a lot of harmonizing going on. And then within this community, I just wanted to bring up the framework. I heard of when first joining that Marilyn and Marina that you had at was at the Integral Europe conference, and looking at the world through the lens of Earth first, then place, then people, then person. I think that because we can help learn through experiences that way in terms of educating. And then the Syntony Spheres framework, I think, is really helpful in terms of what we have within this community, and then amplifying the stories and the good humaning aspect. I think that is a way to really reframe and reshape how we look at ourselves and the world around us with that good humaning phrase.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Lev, you're the next. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much again for our meeting today. It's really inspiring, very rich. Let me put down my hand. I really loved, well, definitely so many different beautiful expressions and ideas shared today. One of them, I wanted to touch upon it right now. We feel happy, abundant, and flourishing when we're in the right relationship. I don't remember who said it, but somebody mentioned this. And then in the right relationship with what or with whom? First of all, of course, with ourselves, right? With our soul, our spirit, our identity, etc., etc. So when we have the right relationship with ourselves, also with each other or with other people, of course, with the place. Marilyn would not understand if I would forget the place, right? The city, and also with the planet and with life itself, or the cosmic sort of whole. So I feel that we are beautifully positioned, as several of us mentioned already, to really share the message through stories, through written stories, through sort of new media, right? On a global scale, working with leaders in 10,000 cities. And there are so many different ways. I think we could engage our video sort of creators like Frank and several others. Also, I feel it's very important to run those online education programs, which would be inspiring, not boring, of course, for young people worldwide. Because I feel we have the capacity, we have sort of the, let's call it the global positioning to talk to people in many different parts of the world with our collective voice. So it's not Lev or Violeta or Marina alone, but all of us, or many of us, right, bringing all of our voices in one sort of symphony and sharing it in different media with the world, with young people, grown-up people, people in positions of power, because many of them are looking for new ways of being in this world and new ways of leadership. So I'm really inspired. I think we have a lot of things to do this year and in the future. And again, thank you for our inspiring discussion today.
Yes, absolutely fantastic. So does anyone want to add something? Yes, Violeta, please.
Just like to use one word, really reintegration. Throughout the century, we humans delivered so much good. Let's bring all this together. Now we have means. For the first time, we're a global civilization. So let's bring this together and energize what has worked for people already and add a bit of sparkle of today's generations with the reinvention of ourselves. But I think this is a great attempt. Too often we all just try to push our own ideas across, but let's be a bit different this time, and let's try to bring it together and create something new that is sort of a consequence of all this incredible knowledge and wisdoms.
Thank you so much, because you know, these conversations, I think, just should be conducted in order to create this common vision and this new emergence, because it's an absolutely divine thing, you know. I feel it, that something absolutely beautiful is birthing during this conversation. Margie, you have your hand raised.
Hold on, let me put my camera on. I'm still in the middle of boxes, but I was quite inspired, and what I feel is like already personally, same thing that happened in Switzerland, and even here, the fact that I am, even though my hands are working, I'm just folding things and everything when I'm listening, I feel it energetically nourishing. And so the whole living cities is, how can we be self-nourishing, and everything becomes a nourishing experience. And what came to me right now, and it goes a bit with the idea, like, how can we start by sharing something? And there's many different things we can start, but one that can be started parallelly with whatever else is it came up because I'm going to be doing it in the Connectathon on the 21st of September. Because we're in this group with dear Alexander and Farrell, and where that's called ritual, or different rituals and everything. And the one that come to me is this ritual, this African ritual called Kasala. And Kasala exists in many different African countries and with different names. So usually when I don't like to say African, because I like to say specifically is it Ethiopian or this, but in terms of the Kasala, it's actually quite true. It exists in different names, different parts of the continent. And what it is, in short, it's the art of celebrating the being with a word. And so it, of course, with time and everything, has many different variations. So it could be like, Marina, you just walked in our village and we want to make you feel welcome. And we start praising Marina, her hair flowing with the wind, Marina looking, smile, makes my heart bloom. And Marina's eyes are full of love, whatever. It's just a celebration of the being. What's not necessarily like what Marina has done, what Marina is worth, and what whatever. It's just the being, you know, what's and so and this practice is an oral practice, but it became a written practice thanks to this John Kabuta, who was also my teacher, this professor from Congo, who made it into a westernized it for it to be accessible and practiced, because it helped him have self-esteem and no longer stammer. He was a terrible stammerer. He was adopted in Brussels from Congo. And anyway, so he went and practiced this in the country, in the village with his ancestors, and then went back to the university where he's a professor. And the way it does is that people just write it, you know. We create a space like we do in Living Cities, and then we write it, you know, I am whatever. I am the daughter of fire and water, depending if my mother was like really energetical, my dad's like, well, let's flow with it, whatever, you know. Just it's real energies with terms that are not judgmental. There's no this is good, this is better, you know, like fire is right and water is nice, volcano is okay, calm lake is cool too. And so it brings it back to something that sort of is alive, and it's inclusive. And so what I felt with that would be interesting that we can explore, because I'm going to try it with a few people on the Connectathon, but we can do it for ourselves in the living cities within us. And a way of sharing is not the I am celebrating the being, which is also great, but maybe have the I am as the desired future. And I tried that with a few people in a few groups, and it works really well. and everybody, of course, will enrich the story with their culture, with their wording, with their knowledge, with their dreams. And really, it's like, you know, I have a dream that we are the dream. We are the ones here to create it. And so maybe we can start that instead of like a visioning, a collective visioning, where we can all write to each other. I am, and it's as if the desired future is speaking to us. It could be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it doesn't matter. And it could be a tree, a house, or whatever. But then that way we are sort of creating an energy space of where what we want to see manifest. And at the same time, it is like fuel, you know, for me, it's my fuel, poetry, but it's also fuel of what I vision the future to be, as opposed to a place where I can't breathe anymore and I'll have to put a mask and sort of like hide my water or whatever. This other scare, fearful vision that's full and unjustified, but maybe this is something we can also nourish within us, is what came to me to share as my final words.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, we have mentioned the Connectathon, which will take place in September. Tim, if you can maybe join us, you could tell more about this event, because most of us will attend it. And I think that it's all our subscribers will receive the information and the link to the Connectathon, which will take place, as far as I understood, on the 22nd and the 23rd of September. So, Tim, please tell us more about it. And our Global Happy City Summit, which will have its great final in September on the autumn equinox, will also take place, will be integrated in the Connectathon. So most of our co-founders will take part in it. So Tim, tell us a few words about this event, and please share the information how to connect. And again, we will send all the information to all our subscribers and all people who are watching us in the WhatsApp recording. We will send you the information. Please subscribe to our newsletter. So Tim, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you guys hear me? Because I know my microphone's not very good. Is it okay?
Absolutely fantastic. Great.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so the Connectathon is an idea that was born in out of conversation with Violetta and the eco-civilization, and we wanted to, you know, maybe we should have a hackathon, you know, to come up with ideas for the future, of solutions for the future. And then that was transformed into the concept of a hack-along, where you rather come together and work over a longer period of time. And then but we still wanted to have an event, and then we figured, well, we should do it on the solstice because it's a ritual time. And then we realized, well, what we really want to do is like have a moment where we come together and create connection. And so it became the Connectathon. And we are having our third Connectathon in just over a month and a few days. It's a 24-hour event. We have one Zoom room open from the beginning to the end, and we have different hosts to step in and take host the separate hours. We have a few hours dedicated to ritual, opening, closing, and the equinox ritual. And other than that, we have the three themes of our humanity. So basically looking at our inner code, how do humans work? The second one is ancient future wisdom, where we look at what can we learn from the past as we create our future. The third theme is living economies in the broader sense, like of not just transaction but relational. How can we shape, because economy is the lifeblood of civilization in many ways. So how can we create different types of economies? So that's the discussion there. And then the third one is tools for transformation, looking at like what are the tools we're building, and what tools do we need to build the kind of culture we need for us to function as a global village or as a superorganism. So those are the themes. We have a webpage, the connectathon.com, or the connectathon.org will work. It'll open up on the 22nd of this month, so you can read more information there. But generally, in brief, what we discovered is that there's something magical about bringing people together in an event like this. And even if we're only 50 people, over time, I think we can grow. And yeah, holding space, there's something magical about that. And you constantly connect with new people, and new ideas are born. And the idea is that we sort of spread out into the world with our various projects. We gather again on the next Connectathon. We spread out, we gather again, almost like a pulse of humanity, spreading up on projects, coming back to the campfire, comparing notes, spreading out again, coming back, a pulse of humanity, you could say. So very briefly, what it's about. I don't know, Violetta, maybe we want to add something. Otherwise, definitely we'll share more information in the chat. I'm really looking forward to having Living Cities Earth as part of the Connectathon.
You said it all, Tim.
Great, absolutely fantastic. So at the end of our wonderful discussion, first of all, I would like to thank all of you for your wisdom and for our collective wisdom, which aroused and emerged by our being together, not only with our hearts, but with our minds, but also with our hearts. And it's absolutely fantastic feeling of being together. And let's do this more frequently. So I would like to finish with this beautiful picture, and I always share it and encourage and ask people to not only to see stars, but to be those people who show these stars, who brings this vision of beauty, even in the mud, for other people. It's really important, and I think that perhaps it's one of the clues to the better society. So we need to share our information. We have also shared with our key takeaways. Please comment your ideas in YouTube if you watch us in recording. Here is our website, where you can subscribe to our newsletters, and you also can have all the information about our future events, including Connectathon, which will be in September. So thank you all so much. If you want to say something, please do it. If not, thanks, and have a good part of the day which you have, because we are all from different parts of the globe, and it's also fantastic that these meetings brings the opportunity to be together despite of the time zone, despite of the location, but we are together with our minds and our hearts, and that's fantastic. Thank you.
Marina, I would just like to set my intention to offer opportunities to bring us all together more like this in story. And to that end, I am designing an event for Global Marathon on September 13th for the Freedom to Choose experience, so that we can see the work that we do in California prisons, and we can bring that work into our circle and see how it can create greater connection, empathy, understanding, and learning amongst our co-founders. And then, we'll have something we can share with the world. So stay tuned. I'll be sending you all out more information with that, and Marina is going to be helping me. So thank you, Marina.
Yes, and we also have the next meeting on the 23rd of August, which will be conducted by Mike and Eric. So please come and participate in this leadership discussion with us. So
yes,
thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Marina.
Thank you.